He told me you'd be stopping by, and I'm so glad. I've always been one for entertaining. He also said that it would do you some good to come by. I've always said that there ain't nothing a little love and a good home-cooked meal with friends can't fix. And honey, you're in for both. That's something me and the Lord always had in common. So you just sit back and make yourself right at home. Now it seems like you all know each other, at least a little bit, but I think an introduction is in order on my part. I'm Martha. I know what you're thinking. That poor woman. I mean, there she was, serving Jesus, the very definition of discipleship. There she was, serving Jesus. And what did he do? There he goes, putting her down and lifting her sister Mary up as an example. I know what you're thinking. That poor woman. She was working so hard to prepare a meal for Jesus and all his lazy, maybe you wouldn't think yella, but just take my word for it. It was an accurate description. There she was, working so hard to prepare a meal for those lazy, yella, good-for-nothing disciples, and how does he thank her for it? He criticizes her in front of them all. I know what you're thinking. That poor woman. What would it have been like to be in a family like that? I mean, to have Lazarus and Mary as your brother and sister? Who can live up to that? I mean, Lazarus' life shows the power of God, and Lazarus is known for being raised from the dead. Or Mary's life shows the generosity and joy that can flow from a Christian. And Mary is known for being the one who anointed Jesus' feet. And Martha, her life shows the bitter ragings of a spiteful, resentful woman. Martha, what is she known for? 5 lousy verses in the Bible about how she's flitting around looking like a fool. I was pretty frantic. I was pretty flustered. If you think I was intense that day serving Jesus, you should have met me before I knew Jesus at all. I know. I can laugh about it now. But I know what you're thinking. That poor woman. If you're going to pity me, though, pity me for the right reasons. Pity me, yes, for my behavior. But don't pity me for Jesus' behavior toward me. I needed those words from Jesus that day like a roast needs some moisture. Like the desert needs the rain. I had put myself in a prison, and Jesus that day, he set me free. I had been so caught up in myself that I was missing out on God. I had been so envious of Mary and of everyone else around me that I had let that envy suck the joy out of everything, out of life, and out of everything I once enjoyed. Did you catch that part in my story? Did you hear that? That when Jesus talked to me, he didn't stop me from serving. He didn't tell me to stop making the meal. Isn't that interesting? He didn't tell me to sit down like Mary, exactly like her, at his feet. He didn't. He was pointing out the difference in us, why we each did what we did, and how we each did what we did. He pointed out the difference in the way in which we did what we did. You see, I was flittering around, anxious and worried. So I chose to serve because I wanted to live up to others' expectations. And because I was held captive by my own expectations of myself. And Mary, Mary sat at Jesus' feet in freedom, in joy, in complete gratitude. Jesus was pointing out the difference in the reasons why we did what we did. I served because I wanted some kind of recognition. I wanted to gain glory for myself. Well, and Mary, she did it to glorify the Lord. Yeah, and Mary, she did choose the better part, because complete gratitude, God's glory, that can't be taken away. It's amazing what a new perspective can do. How a new perspective can make everything new. And when he spoke to me, I got that new perspective. So you better believe he didn't tell me to stop serving or to stop cooking. He didn't tell me to sit down at his feet like Mary, because that's not me. And he didn't do it because the meal had to be served, because the people had to eat. Jesus could have easily made that food all by himself, just like he did for the 5,000. But he knew that I needed to do it. He knew that it wasn't me to sit down at his feet, because I love to serve. I love cooking. I love bringing family and friends together, and the moment that is created when people are together sharing that meal. I love that. It's what I was made for. But I had forgotten. I had forgotten that I loved those things. I was so caught up in how jealous I was, in my envy, in my anger and resentment of how hard I was working and how no one was noticing. I was so caught up in all that I had to do, checking off my to-do lists, worrying, what if I didn't get it done? What if I forgot something? What would happen if I didn't have what we need? Or if I did, but it turned out poorly? What would they think of me? What would Jesus think of me? I was so caught up in all of that I had forgotten. And Jesus reminded me. I had wanted them to come to my house. I had wanted Jesus to pick me to be the host. I had wanted them to come and see me. I had wanted to serve the Lord. And that day, Jesus gave me the chance. That was the day that I learned that my talents and the work that I do, they're worthwhile and they are worthy. That's the day that I learned that everything I can do it for the Lord. Well, I can pay the bills for the Lord. I can manage my house. I can take care of the children. I can welcome my neighbors over and throw a party for the Lord. And I don't mean that flippantly. I mean that everything that I do throughout the day, the reason I do it and the way in which I do it can glorify God, and that changes everything. I mean that I can do everything with integrity, with honesty, with reverence. I can do it all with prayer. And that makes those tasks feel not so menial anymore. I learned that there can be joy in doing all of those things when you do it for the Lord. I learned that God can take any moment and use it to open someone's heart to him, to open their lives to his will. I learned that I could treat every moment, every person I meet with dignity, and that when I do that, they might get just a little piece of God's love, that their hearts would be open. That was the day that I learned that whether success or failure, I can do it for God's glory. And that, in fact, failure can be as much a testimony to God's power and presence and provision as success can. And I am living proof. That was the day that I adopted the motto and the prayer, Lord, whether I have success or failure today, let it be for your glory. And my life proves it, because my failure is shared with everyone about how I let my anxiety and my envy and my anger hijack my mind and my actions. But then Jesus revealed that there is need for only one thing, Jesus. And we have him. That because my life reveals that in my failure, it brings God glory. It shows that when people read Scripture, when they read this passage in the Bible about me and my fretful, fearsome actions and how captive I was, Jesus uses it to set others free. So let me tell you, I am thankful. I am grateful for my 5 little verses because they reveal the glory of God in what he did for me. Now, I wish I could tell you that I never felt anxious again. I wish I could tell you that that was the last day I ever acted like a fool. I wish I could tell you that I never felt envious or fearful or angry again. But having lived it, I can now tell you the truth. That on this side of the resurrection, those parts of being human always hang around your neck. Like the smell of fish in a kitchen. But I can also tell you that Jesus does the same. The one we always need is the one we always have. There were many days after that day where I would be working so hard to prove myself, and I would hear, "Martha, Martha." And I'd realize I'd only managed to prove how much I need him. There had been many days since then when I was worrying and anxious, when I was envious of what other people had or what they had done or what other people thought about them. And I would hear, "Martha, Martha." And I'd realize that everything I'd been chasing after, all the respect, all the love, all the acceptance, all the purpose, all the meaning, all the security I ever wanted, I already had in Jesus. There were many days since that day when I was anxious and fearful, when I would rage at God and say, "I can't see you and I can't hear you. You've abandoned me again." And I would lament and I would cry out, "Give me Jesus, answer me." And I'd hear, "Martha, Martha." And I'd realize that all along while I'd been running around, there Jesus had been with me all along, sitting right there in my living room. Speaking of which, looks like that's it. His supper is ready, so come and get it. Amen.
Amen.